At the moment, you can see not very much information here. So I'm going to start by making this track bigger. I'm going to make it taller. I can do that just by moving my cursor to the bottom left side. You can see it now. It's going to change into a little up and down arrow cursor. And I can click and drag. So this is making this nice and big so I got something to look at. You can see though the waveform inside this track is pretty hard to distinguish at all. So I'm going to change the height of the waveform in the track. And I can do this up here with my zoom arrows. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This one in the middle that I have will change the height of the waveform. And that's really what I want to do. It's also duplicated right over here, so you can actually do it there too. Once you've got your vertical height of the waveform, you don't usually need to go back and change that. So I'm not going to give you a key for that, a hotkey for that. However, now I want to zoom in and out of this waveform on the horizontal axis. And I'm going to do that using a key command, and that is Apple or Command right bracket to zoom in, left bracket to zoom out. You want to get very familiar with that quickly, because this kind of zooming in and out of the waveform is something that we do a lot of. So Apple right, then Apple left to come out. Now, let's look at our tools. You can see we have the Smart tool in operation. That means all 3 tools are available to me without having to go up here and changing. At the moment, my cursor is set to the Selector tool. And this allows me to select the waveform. Once it's selected, I can delete it and do various things like that. Apple Z to undo. If I bring my cursor down below halfway, it now changes shape and it's now the Grabber tool, a hand tool. The Grabber tool allows me to move my region around. We need to be able to do this, of course, when we're synchronizing sound to picture. My last main tool that I'm using is the Trimmer tool. This one allows me to highlight and trim down the waveform or trim it back. Very useful tool, and you'll see this as we move forward, how useful that is. So my Trimmer tool does exactly what it says. It trims the region, but also expands it out. So these are my main tools. The other tools that I showed you, Zoomer tool does what we already know how to do with our key command. So we're not going to use the Zoomer tool, especially because it takes me away from my workspace every time I have to change it. So I want to keep this highlighted as much as I can. One last thing, our edit modes. The one we're in right now, slip mode, is the one we want to be in most of the time. Slip mode allows me to move freely my regions on my timeline. I can also delete something, it'll leave my 2 regions where they are. I can also overlap regions, drop one on top of each other, and so on. So essentially, in slip mode, I'm completely free to do what I want. If you look over my regions list, you can see I've got quite a lot of new regions. I have the original region, which is this one in dark, but these lighter colored ones are sub-regions. Every time I do anything in Pro Tools remembers it. So you're never actually going to be able to delete anything. You may lose it on the timeline, but you'll always be able to bring it back from up here. I'm going to go ahead and bring back the original. Just drag it back onto my timeline. There it is. Let me quickly show you shuffle mode. Shuffle mode's a little different. Watch what happens when I delete something in shuffle mode. When I delete something, it snaps down my resultant region. Let me show you that again. Slip mode, the region remains. Shuffle mode, snaps together. So that's one big thing. Another thing too is in shuffle mode, which I'll go to now, if I try and move my region, it'll only let me move it so it touches an adjacent region. I can't overlap regions in shuffle mode. This is useful sometimes, and you'll see when later on. But that's the main difference between those two. For the most part though, you'll be editing in slip mode.